Now, on a happy note, the New York Post is reporting that Dave Sims is close to agreeing to a deal to replace John Sterling as the radio voice of the Yankees. Now, I love Dave. We've been friends a long time. I know this is something that he truly, truly wanted. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just going off what the New York Post is saying. And I think he's going to be absolutely elated. I mean, he's from the area, essentially, and he's wanted to come back to New York for a long time. He's become very popular in Seattle, but he still has a home in New York during the winter. So this is perfect for him, and he'll slide into the radio booth, and he's 71 years old, so he could do this for a while, and I'm happy for Dave. I really am.
I'm a big fan of Dave Sims. He was always very, very nice to me when I would see him around. I'd see him at Jet games when he was calling them for Westwood One. I'd see him at the Fan a few times. Always a great guy. Good for him. I'm happy for him. But I'm really upset for the Justin Shackles, the Emmanuel Barberis, and
Ricky
Ricardo, and I know Brendan Burke did a few games. They all killed it, Michael. They all killed it. And I think they all did it believing that they had a shot at this gig. So I feel bad for them. Now, I don't know what they were promised, if they were promised anything. Maybe they knew that this was going to happen. But, Michael, they all killed it. Honestly. They all did a terrific job, and it would have been a very difficult decision on who to go with. And I know some of those people personally, so I don't want to tell you who my favorite was. But I think they all nailed it. They all are deserving of the gig, so that's who I feel bad for. And I know they've got futures, but it might not be with the New York Yankees. So Good for Dave. He was in Seattle. He killed it there, and he's done football, and he's a really tremendous broadcaster, so good for him. But I do feel bad for those guys. Well, they all deserve the shot, and they all think they would have killed if they got it.
Especially, the young guys, Justin and Emmanuel, both from Fordham, and I'm close with both of them. Like, the first time you ever dated anybody, you dated Sidney Sweeney. You might not ever date Sidney Sweeney again after this. Because the Yankees, I mean, that's the crown jewel of jobs.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's going to hurt.
Now, if they were told, listen, you're just keeping the space, we're going to find somebody else.
They weren't promised. I mean, the assumption was if they did a good job, which they did, that they'd have a chance and they would be considered.
No, but if again, they might have known that they might have been considered, but there was also somebody else out there that was going to get the gig. Because I had heard Sims rumors for a while now, Michael, so they probably did as well. Where I would feel bad is if all four of those guys believed that they were going to get a legitimate shot and one of the four was going to get the gig, then I'd be really heartbroken for them because then somebody kind of came in and swooped in. Not that would have been Dave's fault, but I really believe that they would have been, any one of those four would have been deserving.
Now, I think this is going to be an unbelievable test case. Again, so I'm a friend of Dave's. If you listen to Dave's calls for the Mariners, he calls them as a homer. And I'm not saying that in a pejorative way or a derogatory way. He's a homer broadcaster. He'll say we and stuff like that. He's rooting on the air. Will the Yankees and FAN tell him that can't fly in New York? Or will that be a test case? Because it's always been assumed, Gary and I, we don't root on the air. Sam Rosen doesn't root on the air. No. Mike Green doesn't root on the air. Will it change? Will New York accept that? Because I've always been told, you guys don't root on the air because you're afraid of the radio and TV columnists ripping you. Well, we're not afraid, but they definitely would rip us. Where this is definitely a different level of viewership and listenership. Will Dave change his style and do a down the middle where, we know John wanted the Yankees to win. He never said we. Never rooted on the air and ripped them. I mean, on the playoffs, he said they ran the bases like drunken sailors. So, I mean, will it change? Will all of a sudden the New York market change where you can actually broadcast a game and say we and be upset when a team doesn't do well?
Well, I will say this. Most of the guys that broadcast like homers are told to broadcast like homers. He did games on football for Westwood One. So he can do it down the middle.
Oh, he can do anything. He's very talented.
I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure if he was over the top, Michael, it was probably because he was told by the Mariners, we want you to root hard for our team. And he probably did what he was told as the broadcaster. And if he comes to the Yankees, he will do what they want him to do. I don't think it's his style, Michael. I think that's probably what Seattle wanted. Why not? There's no other competition there. It's the Seattle Mariners. There's no other team.
A lot of teams
in
are
New
like
York. Listen, one of them. I don't know what they're told, but most of the time, I think if you're really over the top, it's because that market wants you to be. Where does it usually happen, Michael? It usually happens in smaller markets.
But it does happen in Chicago.
Yeah, but that it's always happened in Chicago,
right?
But Dave Mishkin is one of my favorite people in the broadcast business, and he screams like a maniac when the Lightning score, and then gives you just a regular call for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Is that his style, or is that what the Lightning want? It makes sense for the Lightning to want that. It's Tampa, right? It's a non-traditional hockey market. That's him. That's Mishkin. I think Dave will call it the way the Yankees want it to be called.
But I wonder, do the Yankees want it to be? The Yankees have never told me not to be a homer, and they've never told me to be a homer. That's my style, is because I came from the newspaper industry, that I was going to call it down the middle. Obviously, be more. You're more excited when the Yankees do well. Well, we're not lying. It's better for business when the Yankees win. And Gary wants the Mets to win as much as anybody, but he doesn't it, and he doesn't root.
No.
And he'll rip them when they're not doing well. He's as critical as anybody.
Right.
But we're not homers.
But that's where I'd fight back. I don't think it's Dave's style, because how do we know Dave? I know him from Westwood One. I know him from doing a show on The Fan. I know him from, I think he did some stuff at MSG back in the day.
Oh, a lot,
I never saw him as a homer until he went to Seattle.
Right.
So I'm going to go with the evidence presented to me that that's the way the Mariners wanted it called. So I think he'll do it any way they want him to do it.
It's going to be fascinating because he's such a great broadcaster. Again, he'll do it whichever way he has to do it. But if that's in his soul, that's what he does as a team, and because he'd never been a team announcer except for before Seattle.
Right, yeah.
He did Westwood One. That's a game a week, different team. There's no connection. But maybe Yankee fans will like it. Maybe it'll change the paradigm in New York. Who knows?
Peter won't know this, but do you remember the name of his show on The Fan? He did with
Coleman and the Soul Man.
Yeah. He did it with Ed Coleman. Coleman and the Soul Man. Your thoughts, Peter?
I've never heard that name before. Who was the Soul Man?
Dave. And Ed Coleman was yeah.
So you get
he
it?
was the Soul Man.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's
Coleman. Soul Man.
Not sure that would be the name today.
I see.
No.
But in 92?
No, we'll go back.
Worked.
No, the pendulum's turning. It would be the name today. By the way, this note from Anthony Pusick. So the Yankees are getting $15 million from the Rays to essentially rent Steinbrenner Field. The Rays will pay the Yankees $4.5 million more next year than their highest paid players, Brandon Lau and Jeffrey Springs. They're paying more for the stadium than a player.
That's not surprising.